Hello everyone and welcome back to the Grimm Chronicles. I am Kathy Grimm and my channel is the Grimm Reader, and these are the weekly Grimm Chronicles, and this is going to be number 17 for this year 2022. It's a strange time of year, and as people who watch fairly regularly will know that these are very chatty updates, and I include live updates and all that stuff too. So it's the Grimm Chronicles. So today, in 2 weeks' time, I will be reporting to you live. No, not live. From Germany, from Wiesbaden, where my sister lives, which is a beautiful, beautiful city, fairly close to Frankfurt, if anyone knows Germany. And actually, there was a strong, and there might still be, somewhat of a US Army presence, because it's definitely in the part of Germany that was always occupied by the Americans after the war and beyond. The Rhine-Main area had there was a Rhine-Main base, I think. I even went there once for some event or a couple of events. As non-US people, you don't really get to go on there unless you're invited, or, they're pretty, if you have people you might get invited onto the base, but otherwise it's off limits to regular folks. And Wiesbaden still has some, not nearly as much as it used to have, but it still has some as far as I know. So yeah, that's where I'll be, from a little hotel room that I stay in close to where my sister lives. And so things are winding down with school. This is the last week of classes, and then next week will be finishing up some grades, grading, and final grades, and putting them into the computer, to the system. So the semester will be over. Yay! It's been a long one. The spring, excuse me, always seems longer than the fall, to me at least. Partly because, for me, my issues is that even though we have a nice long break over the winter, you're still tired. You're more tired in the spring than you are in the fall. The fall, you're still kind of fresh. And just the pacing is, the way I feel is that fall has so many nice little breaks. Plus maybe, my birthday, so I'm kind of excited about that. But fall, we have almost right at the beginning Labor Day. Then we have a one-day fall break, which is nice in October, even though it's only one day. And then it's Thanksgiving, and then it's basically it. And then you have winter break. Whereas in the spring, we start in January, and there's nothing until spring break, which is a long stretch. And then there's nothing until the actual end of the semester, which is why I felt kind of okay about giving everyone, including myself, Good Friday off. Just another one-day break was, workshopping your papers or whatever. That really was just a break. Well, and then this time I was recovering from my booster. So the spring is harder for me in terms of the long stretches. And I can tell that everyone's tired. The students are tired too. They're very tired. These, 14 weeks of instruction is long. Northwestern was on the quarter system, which was quite different. Sort of quick. But then a lot of stress came with that too, in terms of getting stuff done. That was kind of hard as a grad student with your longer papers. Anyway, to the reading. Not that much of it has happened. I'm trying to think where I'm at. I'm still working on my fantasy novel, The House of Chains, book 4 in the Malazan Empire, which I'm still enjoying, but as I always say, I don't think I'm getting that much out of it, because I'm listening to it and I just kind of let myself fall into this world. And even though I'm somewhat invested, I'm not overly invested. It's not like reading something like Lord of the Rings, where I'm really, really captivated by the story, because there's so much going on and there's so many different characters that I'm just not that familiar with, even though this is book 4. It's hard for me to be, I still like it, but I'm sort of thinking I might try something else. The next audio might be a different thing. We'll see. Maybe something else fantasy-wise. If you have anything, I'm as you may have noticed, I'm a bit picky. I tried what's his name, Gabriel Kahane, someone with K, a Canadian writer, and I just didn't like it at all. I didn't like the style. And then it sort of ran back to this. And I've even tried a Robin Hobb, and it didn't do that much for me. But anyway, any big series you can... There's the guy who writes stuff about early England, Bernard, something with C, I forget his name. Maybe I'll try one of his. And I'm also kind of vaguely, because my students are doing presentations on all kinds of things, and one of the presentations is going to be on Song of Ice and Fire, so the George R.R. Martin books. Maybe I'll give them a go, even though of course I know the Game of Thrones show. And I enjoyed it. Because I'm not that, it's like it's a good show, you know, and I really like the characters and the acting and the storylines. Even up until the end, I wasn't that upset with it all, as a lot of other people seem to be. So we'll see about that. Now, in terms of the reading, Zola's going quite well. It's still not the pace that it should be. I'm in the middle almost, I think, about halfway. And I haven't been able to have the peace of mind to delve deeply into the background like I started to last week. And I still might do that at a different time, but not this week. And so what I thought I would do today is just give you kind of an update on, so what I've been saying about it, how a lot of times it's people in a room interacting and having conversations. And it really, that seems to be kind of what strings the book together, are these meetings of Rougon, the boss, the head guy, and his group, so to speak. And it's both men and women, and it's just people who are associated with him. And so at least for this half of the book, he's been ousted from his position, and he's sort of, on the outside, he seems to be at peace with it all, but Zola does a really good job of describing how on the inside he really doesn't like, he is kind of, what's the word? It's not that he doesn't, so he's obsessed with power. So being outside of it, on the one hand, he wants to make sure that no one thinks that he's bored or restless. On the other hand, he is deeply bored and restless. And there's a fantastic scene. I just think it's so fun. It was funny and well done between him and the woman who I mentioned last week, Chlorinde, who was posing, wearing nothing but gauzy lace. And sort of their relationship culminates in this pretty hilarious scene where she comes over in her very form-fitting riding garment, and he describes it quite in detail, Zola does. And I'm trying to see if I can find that. Oh, and she's trying to sell tickets for a lottery for a charitable event. And yes, here's the description of her outfit. Her thick blue riding habit, this long skirt of which she had caught up over her arm, made her seem even taller than she was, while the bodice that went with it, cut like a waistcoat, close-fitting with little rounded tails, was like real skin stretched tightly over her shoulders, bosom, and hips, etc., etc. So, yeah, he goes into quite a bit of detail into the woman's clothing, and it's obviously meant to be alluring for Rougon. And she has a whip with her, which all this mention of whips, it makes me think of Nietzsche, and anyway. But there's a fantastic scene where they kind of almost get together, but she keeps him away with the whip, and she whips him away. And it's almost like if she didn't have that whip, this would have been, you know, basically a rape scene. And he gets more and more titillated by what's going on. They go into I'm blanking on the word, place where the horses are, the stables. And she starts kissing a horse, and that drives him crazy. And it is kind of meant to. I mean, everything she does is meant to, for his sake. She patted the animal's croppers, then slipped into his stall, brushing against his flanks as she did, without seeming the least afraid. She said she wanted to have a look at the animal's head. A moment later, Rougon heard her plant smacking kisses on the horse's nostrils. The kisses infuriated him. "Do come out of there, please. If he shies, you'll be crushed." And etc., etc. And then it just goes on from there, and they chase each other around the stables. And it culminates in her having to keep him away quite, I mean, it's clear that if she hadn't, he would have raped her probably, or at least ripped her clothes off. And then as she was trying to keep the crop out of his reach despite her blows, he grabbed her thighs and tipped her through the door on the straw with such force that he fell down beside her. She did not utter a sound, but with all her strength lashed him across the face from ear to ear. "You bitch," he shouted, coughing and choking and swearing. Furious, he said he knew very well that she had slept with everybody, with the coachman, the banker, and Pozzo, so why he wanted to know, why not with him, etc., etc. And of course it comes out that she wants him to marry her, which he won't do. Apologies for strange light. It's been dark. It's been one of those days where it's gray and sunny, and so I had the lights on, and now I don't really need them because the sun's coming in, so apologies for that. Anyway, so yeah, this fantastic scene, and really well done. And they have, they kind of have a fairly frank conversation as to why he won't marry her, because he kind of knows they won't get along. It won't be a successful marriage. It won't be a successful alliance, probably because they're just both such strong personalities. And after that, things quiet down between them to the point where he arranges for her to marry another man who's definitely not an alpha like he is. And I'm at the point where she seems to have made peace with her marriage, and it even says that he's a good man, even though he's sort of a lesser impact than someone like Rougon. And then she and Rougon have become basically platonic friends of a sort. I mean, it could change, I don't know, but right now they just get along. And he has also married a very sort of austere, good housekeeper, extremely respectable in the bourgeois way, and that's kind of what he wanted. He wanted to, through his marriage, gain utter respectability, to the point where when he has people over for the little gatherings, it describes quite well how he shoos them away promptly at 10:30. Like tea is always served at 10, and then he basically throws them all out at 10:30. He really kind of turns the lights off, and sort of kind of telling us how, I guess, he wants to live in a very structured way, and part of that is, keeping good hours and all of that. And his wife isn't really described in great detail. She leaves him and Chlorinde, his lady friend, alone, but they just chat and they talk and they have a good time so far. I mean, I'm not saying it might not change completely. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's all very well done. And I just, for the end of my little sort of, 12 minutes already on Zola, I wanted to give you another quote from sort of telling us who Rougon is. And and it's interesting because despite how when I read this out, it might remind you of someone, or not even just one person, but on the other hand, I still like this person. I like Rougon, even though he's not really supposed to be likable at all. But Zola has a way of, describing them and their foibles, trying to get out of the light here, and still making you somewhat not hate them, at least. Anyway, let me read this quote from, and I'm sorry when I look down, it's not as nice as when I look at the camera, but I could try and do this. So this is a quote from his Inner Workings. For the first few months, Rougon shut himself away like a recluse in preparation for the fresh struggles he saw ahead. He loved power for power's sake, free from any vain lust for wealth or honors, crassly ignorant and utterly undistinguished in everything but the management of other men. It was only in his need to dominate others that he achieved any kind of superiority. He loved the effort involved and worshipped his own capability. Being above the common herd, in which he saw only fools or rogues, and ruling them with a rod of iron, had developed in him a remarkable quick-wittedness and astonishing mental energy. He believed only in himself. Sorry, I really have to move the sun here. He believed only in himself. Where others had arguments, Rougon had convictions. He subordinated everything to ceaseless self-aggrandizement. Though utterly devoid of personal vices, he indulged in secret orgies of power. So that's his vice, is that he's addicted to power. That's his only vice. So, so it is kind of a strange, perhaps something typical, something about the 19th century. I'm thinking of people like Bismarck, who, I've never really read a biography of Bismarck, but from what one hears, extremely sort of self-assured and wanting to be in charge of what he says about how his only superiority is that he likes to move people around like just play it, just pieces, which is an interesting form of superiority and not a good one. Yeah, so I'm really enjoying it, and I will try my best to finish it before I go to Germany, but we'll see. And then other than that, not that much else is happening. I have not had any time to start the Thomas Mann that I've been riding with, so that's just there. Flights is waiting for me, and I think I will just put that one in my backpack. I'll squish it in there somehow, even though it's a book, and take it to Germany. And I'm sort of trying to make my peace with my iPad situation. And the book that I've started on here, just trying to vibe with it, trying to get into it more, is All the Pretty Horses. Now, some of the reasons why I'm not getting into it, I think one of it is just not having, I think I can only really read well on something like the iPad when I'm very sort of unbusy. And I don't know why that is. There's something about my brain. It's almost like, it's not exactly a reading slump, but the quietness that you need to settle down into a book, especially for some reason on the iPad, is missing a little bit, and I do get too easily distracted. And I started it over a couple of times because I wasn't really connecting with it. And part of it is, and it's an unfair comparison to compare it to Blood Meridian, which I mean, I can already tell is by far a superior work of fiction. But what's interesting is that I do think you can sort of see him. He's not a good. This is not as well written, but it's not bad. It's just, you could just tell he's trying to find his voice, and some sentences I would phrase differently, and he reuses words in a way I wouldn't do, and it sometimes seems a little bit more stylized in an unsuccessful way. I'm being harsh on it because I'm comparing it to Blood Meridian. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have read that first. But on the other hand, I think I'm only reading this because I like Blood Meridian. Whereas if I had started with this, I don't know if I don't know. So it's not bad. It's a typical Western. These people, except it takes place quite in the present. Well, like the 20th century, I think. But it sort of harkens back. It's like a family story in Texas. So I think I'll keep at it. One good thing about the iPad. So one bad thing is it's not as easy to take little underlinings and stuff. I mean, you can underline, which reminds me, I did start a different book. And what you can do on here is you can share a quote to Twitter straight away from the Kindle, which I do sometimes. But it's hard to sort of make little post-it notes and little notes to yourself on here. I mean, you could sort of write it down somewhere else, but I like to underline and really just mark up my books. And so that's a negative. But what is quite nice is how if I come across something like they mentioned in the beginning, or somewhere they mentioned some grant, and it was a grant that was done in Texas to for German settlers. I forget the name of the grant. It's a Miller or something grant, and I'm like, what is that? And then you can just highlight it and go onto Google, and it will tell you. So anytime you have a word that you don't know, or there were other words that I didn't know, trace, travois poles, that the indigenous people drag behind them, these things that with which you can transport your goods with a horse. So things like that. And there's other things. So whenever you come across something that you're not sure about, you can look it up. And I really like that, except it does slow down the reading, but yeah, that's fine with me. So yeah, I think I'll keep at it. The book that I sort of started, and I even downloaded a Kindle copy of it, is one of my favorite books of all time, which is this very, very strange 19th century novel called The Indian Summer or After Summer by Adalbert Stifter, the Austrian 19th century Austrian writer who sadly did away with himself with a razor. Sorry, but the book is so strange. There's nothing exactly there's really nothing like it. And it starts out with, as I remember, as I keep saying, the description of the father, this family, and how the father is a book fetish schist among and all kinds of cultural goods, but especially books, so much so that he puts them in a glass cupboard with curtains because he doesn't want people to see the titles of the books, because that could be considered showing off. And then the book room itself can never be entered other than with a sort of, it's like a church, or it's like some kind of ceremonial place where he goes in there and carefully takes the books out and lays them down and reads. It's not even like a cozy library. It's very sort of, the kids are kept away from it, but sometimes he shows them stuff. So it's very patriarchal, but there's no tension whatsoever. No tension. It's just kind of, the style is very strange. And how the father didn't like the mixed rooms, the rooms where you could do more than one thing. The rooms have to be, and then it sort of says the room has to show what its purpose is by way of its furnishings, and that's its only purpose, as if the room is some kind of living thing. And the whole book is like that, and it will go on, and it's about this. It is a strange type of Bildungsnovel of this one young fellow. And now they've moved to the suburbs, and they love the suburbs because they don't have to share a building anymore with other people. And the sort of nature is not as far away as it was in the city. The kids are allowed to play outside. So, typical why people like the suburbs in general. But I don't know if I'll continue reading it. I mean, I do want to, but I don't know. Especially not on my device. But when if I might, it's right there, so I might pick it up. So yeah, so that's my favorite novel. And I think that's about it. Oh yes, there's sort of other people sort of on the periphery that I want to read, but I don't have, I'm sort of in this sort of weird, well, do I get a book version of their books, or do I get the Kindle version? So Gerard Murnane, the Australian writer, has come up a lot. There's a New Yorker article about him, or New York Times. I think he's published a group of essays, very strange essays. He's another very strange person, but people are obsessed with him. And there's a very good Travel Through Stories, I forget his name. He did an excellent review of The Plains, I think, and really interested in that writer. Also really interested in the Norwegian writer John Foss, that has been on the internet, on the YouTubes quite a bit. And with him, I'm sort of, I think I might look for his stuff in German, and see if I find them. I may have already mentioned that before. But so yeah, that's where I'm at with everything. We're moving into getting the semester work out of the way. I'm going crazy with trying to stockpile what I will need to take and getting all my ducks in a row for the trip, and exciting times. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. Please tell me what you're reading, or say hi in the comments, even if you don't have much to say. I know it's not always easy, but in general, I'm pretty happy. I haven't had a chance to figure out the community tab. I don't really know. Like, I thought you could sort of just post pictures or videos, but it's for some reason it doesn't seem to be letting me do that. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But I will stop here because it's already over 20 minutes. And yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. And I will talk to you very soon. And at some point it will turn into vlogging for going to Germany too. I mean, I'll definitely vlog. I'll try and do a travel vlog, because I think that might be fun. And a way of kind of keeping my mind centered despite what happens. Travel, anything can happen. And yeah, we'll see how that all goes. Talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.